Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome. And today what I want to go over is what weapons should you look at if you're looking to get an epic rarity weapon or the purple rarity weapon. What should be one of your first ones? So that's what we're going to go over. I'm going to talk about what ones are good, what ones are okay, and what ones you absolutely should never touch. And you guys can make the choice from there. And worst case, you can always test any of these guns out in the exhibition. If you don't know, you can always go to the exhibition. You can click on that gear icon, and then you can type in the name of a gun, like the Nidhogg. You click the part and save, and it will automatically search for builds with that part. And that way you can go test drive the stuff, you can test it out and see if you like it before you buy it. And I always suggest you do that with anything epic rarity and up, just so you don't waste your gold and just to have buyer's remorse. So anyways, why don't we go ahead and get into it. We'll go ahead here to the market. And eventually I want to do this with a bunch of different parts, not just weapons. Anyways, so the Miller, if you don't have the Battle Pass, the Miller is a pretty good minigun. It's one of the better ones. So I would suggest running at least 2 of these with some coolers, maybe some radiators. Super solid weapon. The King Mine isn't bad if you have like 3 of these and then a couple of cap cans. You can really do some work. You just gotta get used to the playstyle because it is a bit of hit and run type playstyle. Lances, they're good, but you can play them if you want, but it's a dick thing to do. Let's say that. Pyres are pretty good, but they're only good if you mix them with other pyres. And that's going to go for a lot of the other weapons on this list as well. So if you have like 2 or 3 pyres, it's not really going to do a whole lot. I mean, I guess maybe if you're at like low power score and you want to run like 4 of them, that might work. But I would suggest getting 5 or 6 of these and then adding a reload module on with it, and possibly the Harpy cabin for added explosive range. So, my opinion, that's what I would run. The cap can, like I said, it's good for like my other mine layers if you want to mix them with that, or porcupines if you ever get those. If you're gonna invest in the cap can, they are expensive, and I honestly would recommend having 2 of them because after they got nerfed, their harpoon doesn't attach as well or stay attached as well, and having 2 of them to reassure that you harpoon somebody is a good idea. The MG13 Equalizer. Not a bad weapon, but not the greatest minigun either. It has really low durability compared to a lot of other weapons in its class. So you can use this and be effective with it, but you have to make a proper build with it in order to make sure your weapons don't get blown off right away. The Trombone, not much to say there. It's a really low damage weapon. It's the lowest damage weapon in the game. All it does, you shoot it off, it heats parts, you can mix it with pretty much anything. If you want to put one on a minigun build, if you want to put one on a missile build, or whatever, you can do that. Remedy is a pretty good flamethrower, coming at only 300 gold, give or take. It is not a bad option to run 2 or 3 of these with like a radiator, and if you can afford the Blight cabin, throw that on. You can make some really solid fire dog builds with these and stay at a lower power score than you would if you had like the legendary or relic counterpart to this. Incinerator, I actually prefer to only use that for the Leviathan raid or just raids in general. I feel like the Incinerator is best for that type of setting. It can be good, and it can be annoying in PvP, but that's just my opinion. The Yang Wang, I don't personally like it. I wouldn't personally recommend it, but I've seen people do really well with it. So, there's that. The Thresher, it's okay, but I wouldn't run high power score with these. They have low durability and low damage compared to others in its class. Spectre 2, it's okay. Not terrible. It's a machine gun with a decent bonus, or a decent perk, excuse me. That's pretty much all there is to say about that. Caucasus, another machine gun. It's just an automatic machine gun. You don't have to target people yourselves, really. You just point at someone, hold down the trigger. There you go. Aurora, this is kind of like a cap can or a harpoon, where it's one of those things where it's good to have one of them if you're using it with like other stuff. So like if you're using like a minigun build like arbiters or equalizers, it's always good to have like 3 of those and then 1 of these, because it will overall increase your damage output, and it's a good bonus to have, similar to the trombone. Gravistars, shotguns in this game I wouldn't ever recommend, just because they got nerfed into the ground, and radiators also got nerfed into the ground in terms of effectiveness towards shotguns, or with shotguns. The Gravistar is an exception because it is still a very strong weapon in comparison to any other shotguns that are pretty much legendary rarity or under. These dominate. They're very good. Very, very good. You can run these with the photon cabin to get that bonus damage output and a couple of radiators and probably do really well. And they have higher durability as well. Skinner, not much to say about that. It's a harpoon. If you want to harpoon people and don't want to use the cap cans, there you go. Astrius, this is an okay weapon, but you really need to like perfect the build for it to make it really effective. It's pretty much the epic version of a Scorpion, but it does 50 damage to your build every time you shoot it. If you shoot a charge shot, that is. So I would look up some videos or something if you want to use that, but it's not a bad weapon. The Nest, it's okay. It got nerfed a while back, and it hasn't been that good since. But it's not completely terrible. It's not the worst weapon on this list, so you can try it out. The Varun, that's a fairly recent add to the game. It's not terrible, but I just can't use it very well. But people that can make good use of it, they do work with it. So I'll leave that up to you. Crickets, garbage. I know their damage output says it's high, which it is, but they are unguided missiles, and you have to be very, very precise, and the volley, how it shoots, is very slow. So hitting all those missiles on target, it's very hard. They nerfed these into the ground a while back, and they just haven't been viable since. Batman, I would say there's better options. Get a couple of the Hulks and upgrade them for damage, and you pretty much have the same damage as a Fat Man, and their lower power score. That's my suggestion. The Yokai is the only drone on this list I will recommend. It's an autonomous drone. You shoot off. You can have 3 of them. They shoot off in an arc, and they go pretty far, so you can, aim them pretty far out. They're good for cutting off pathways. If there's enemies coming to flank, they're good for that. They do get destroyed easily, but if they do not get destroyed, they can do some really good damage. And if you add reload modules with the Yokai, it makes them reload really quick. You can just keep firing them off really fast. So those are pretty decent. They're the only drone that I will say is good and not overpowered. The Yokai, really good. I like this personally. It can do a lot of damage. You can pretty much nuke people with this if you're accurate. And the thing is, with this weapon, if you hit them directly, it's not really going to do that much damage. You have to hit near them on the ground or on a nearby surface, and then the explosion radius increases. If you mix this with the Harpy Cabin, you can get some really good turnouts in matches. I mean, I have one-shotted tons of people with those, and if you can really get used to how they work, they can be really good. The jewels are not too bad if you want an autocannon that's more meant for a rushing type play style. These would be good for you. That's really all there is to say about it. Otherwise, they're just an autocannon. The Executioners, I don't really recommend these. Cannons got nerfed pretty bad a while back as well, and the Executioners took the brunt of it, I feel like. They used to be meta for a long time, and now they're just meh. There's better options. The Prometheus, it's not too bad if you have 3 of these. I'm not very good with them, but they do have potential. They're just burst energy weapon, so yeah. The Quasar, not too bad. It's pretty decent. If you're looking for an energy type, cannon type weapon, this isn't too bad, and it compares very well in terms of stats to its legendary counterpart, but at a less power score. So if you want to have something like this, but don't want to have a bunch of legendary stuff to be at a really high power score or whatever, you can opt in for the Quasars, and they're not too bad of a damage. Again, the Harpy Cabin would work really well with these. The triggers aren't too bad. They've always been okay. I know this says the damage is low, but that's just per tick. That adds up very quickly, and then it gets the final burst, which does 500% extra damage if it hits. Not too bad to run 3 or 4 of these. They can actually be very effective. The Whirls, these are not too bad, actually. They're pretty good, but again, they're just an autocannon. They have a decent perk. You can read it if you want. But if you don't want to have something this high power score, you can always get the Tempests, which are the little brother to these. They are a special rarity, so you can check those out too and see which one you want. The Midgets, I said midgets. I am so sorry if that offends anyone. Midgets, oh my gosh. Fidgets, correct myself. The Fidgets are pretty good, sometimes. I've tried endlessly to use these, and their damage output is really good at close range. Because they shoot so fast, and if you have radiators on with them, they do a lot of damage. It's just that they don't have a lot of durability, so they get blown off very easily, but you can run 5 of these, and good lord, do they hit hard. So, there you go. If you want a good, fast-shooting machine gun, that's a solid option. Thunderbolts used to be really good, used to be what a lot of people used, including myself. I even went out of my way to upgrade all 3 of mine for damage and whatnot, and that was a waste of gold. Because, once again, it's a shotgun that they nerfed into the ground, they nerfed the damage, they nerfed the range, they nerfed the accuracy, they nerfed the perk. Everything about this, they nerfed into the ground. Not worth getting anymore. Don't waste your time. That can also be said for the Clarinet Toe. The Toe has always been bad. I mean, it's just always been bad. Don't let the stats fool you. This thing sucks. And it doesn't do that much damage. It's just, you know, unless you hit an explodey bit, you're not really going to do much with it. And you can only have 1 of them. It's just don't get it. And then there's the Elephant. The Elephant is almost $2,000, and honestly, if you're gonna spend that kind of money on a cannon like this, get the Fat Man. They have slightly better damage, and they don't cost as much. So there you go. Impulse, I think these recently actually got a buff towards their perk and their damage, so I haven't used them in a few years, but I have heard that they're better now, so if you want a grenade launcher, there's another option. Phoenix Crossbow, not completely terrible. Can't say I would recommend it personally, but if you want a crossbow that shoots explosive parts, or it shoots explosive bolts instead of just a normal one, this is an option. And again, mix it with the Harpy Cabin, you might have a solid turnout. ATGDM Flute. It's not bad, but nowhere near as good as it used to be. I believe this got nerfed a while back too. But people can still hit pretty hard with this at medium and lower power scores. If they're running like 4 or 5 of these, they can really do some work. If you can get used to the laser guided system and get accurate, this may be an option for you. The Whirlwind, not really that viable anymore due to the fact that we now have the other 2 autocannons in the game that are pretty similar to this. The Tempest and the Epic version of it are better, in my opinion. You can run the same amount of them, and they just do better. They just have higher damage, and yeah, so I wouldn't recommend that. Melee weapons, any of the melee weapons on this list, they're melee weapons. If you like the stats, you like the power score, go ahead and get them. You just run people over pretty much and saw them all to pieces. Drones, any other drones on this list besides the Yaogwai, I'm going to say don't waste your time. They're not that great, and they're just... the Grenadiers used to be good like 2 or 3 years ago. They're garbage now, but that goes for pretty much all the drones on this list, again, besides the Yaogwai. The Tackler, not too bad. It's actually pretty decent. It's got a bunch of resistances. You can run like 4 or 5 of these with like radiator and cooler, do some work. They're a machine gun that has more durability, so if that's what you're looking for, go for it. The adapters, not that great. I mean, they're good for ripping off weapons, and that's about it. They don't really have very good damage. But yeah. Again, drones, don't waste your time. Here's the other crossbow in the epic rarity, the Spike 1. I have fallen in love with these recently. It has been a while since I used them, but within the last month I started using them again. I upgrade them, and they feel like they got a buff. I'm not sure if they did, but they feel good now. They feel better than they did, at least. So if you want to give these a try, they are super fun. You can knock people over sometimes, and yeah, just have a fun time. Again, another melee weapon. Look it over. If you want it, you want it. If you don't, you don't. Locust, it's another unguided missile launcher. This one isn't terrible. It's decent damage. But keep in mind, very low durability and high power score. So, yeah. M29 Protector, not too bad. Pretty similar to the Tackler. Look at it. See if you like it. It's not a bad option if you want something that has armor. Snowfalls do a lot of damage, but they have a very high drop rate. So, I mean, like, you really have to lead your shot with this, and, you know, you really have to make sure that you are aiming properly, otherwise they're just going to drop off. Like, their drop off is very fast. So it has a good and bad, but if you can get used to them and get used to how they aim and where their drop off point is, these have potential to do a lot of damage. The Gremlins, I would say no, don't worry with the Gremlins. If you're going to get these, you're honestly better off just getting like 6 Goblins, which are the special rarity version of this, and just going ham. They're better, in my opinion. Aerothrone, garbage. It's just the circumstances to be able to do the damage that it says on the stats is ridiculous. You have to be within a very tight range. And what I mean by that is if you're too far or too close, it's not going to really do anything. You have to be within that very specific range, and it's very hard to use. I wouldn't personally recommend it. Yeah. The Rupture, this shotgun used to be good. Again, shotguns, nerfs, not great. The Fafnir, this isn't bad, but honestly, I would say that if you're going to go for a single shot shotgun like this, the only option I would recommend would be the Nidhogg's, because you can get them to, if you do up the build properly, you can get them to around 8,000, 9,000 power score with a reload module, and you can run 3 of them, and they do more damage than the Fafnir. So that's my recommendation. Don't bother with the Fafnir unless you really can't afford to get Nidhogg's. Then they're not a terrible option. Blockchain isn't too bad. It's all right for ripping off parts, but not as good as something like the Corvo or some cannons or something. Shotguns, like the Fafnirs or Nidhogg's, are better in my opinion. The Barrier 9, I don't think anyone understands why this is in the weapon category instead of in the hardware or module category. It's not really a weapon, but it's just a giant shield. You can put it up for your team, and it lasts like 5 or 10 seconds. Yeah. Argument, it's the best way I can describe it if you don't know what it is. It's kind of like a single-shot shotgun, kind of like the Nidhogg, but a longer range version of that and not as strong. So there is a charge up on it though, and the longer you charge it, the stronger it gets, and the longer the range you can effectively hit people at. Enlightenment, again, it's not really much of a weapon. It's more of like a passive weapon or a module, but it does shoot a missile. It's just, it doesn't do any damage. It, you know, read the perk, but I don't care for it. I don't really know a whole lot of people that run that, but if you could find a use for it, there you go. Anyways, that's going to do it. That is the entire list of epics. I know this was a bit of a longer video, but I wanted to go over every single weapon that I could, obviously besides drones, because like I said, drones are just ass, minus the Alguai. But that's pretty much it. And hopefully this helped you decide on what you may or may not want when you get to that point where you want to get epic weapons, or when you get gold coins to get epic weapons. You know, maybe this helped to make up your mind a bit. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, try them out in exhibition first. See how you actually like the feel of them and the damage and whatnot, and go from there. Don't just go based on my personal opinion. You can take that into account, of course. But make sure you test them out as well. But for now, that's going to be it, guys. And this is Anubis Tech and Games, and I'll catch you on the next one.